of the Luray Town Council will now come to order. Will you please stand and join me in a moment of silence? I'll ask Councilperson Luray to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Danielle, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Alkmaar?
Here.
Mr. Vickers? Ms. Lillard?
here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Mr. Pettit?
Here.
Mr. Sowers?
Here.
And Mr. Webb?
Here.
Okay, do we have any additions to or deletions from the agenda?
Well, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the Luray Park Association has requested the council to consider the addition of a presentation from the LPA regarding the urgent need of funding to accept the repair of the electrical service for the Singing Tower. And I move that the council adds that item to 6-B to be APRA Luray Singing Tower to the agenda. Get
Second.
it out right.
Good enough.
You did a great job. Council, any discussion? Danielle?
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the following consent agenda. The minutes of the regular council meeting on March 13th, 2023, minutes of the work session meeting March 28th, 2023, the accounts payable totaling $495,252.74, the financials for period ending March 31st, 2023, and the lease agreement with the CAS Severn for IBM server replacement.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you, Jason. Danielle?
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Okay, citizen comments. We have one person signed up. Courtney Nelson? Courtney, are you here? Would you come up front, please, to the podium? We have your name and address. Thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Courtney Nelson, and the address is 701A Coverstone Lane, Shenandoah, Virginia, 22849. I do have some packets. I sent out an email ahead of time, so it has some of the hyperlinks. We, as Daughter of the Star, spoke at, I believe it was the last town hall meeting, so it's been about a month. And we are currently looking for funding to fund the market manager position so that there's some sustainability of the business through both time and place. So we are requesting funds from not only the town of Luray, but also the town of Shenandoah and Page County as a whole through the Economic Development Authority and also the Tourism Council. So do you want me to pass these out?
Will you just give them to Ligon and we'll pass them on down, Ms. Nelson? Thank you.
It has like a summary page, so hopefully it's not as intimidating as it looks. It's a huge packet.
Do you have anything else for us, Ms. Nelson? Or?
I think that is all.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else for citizen comment here tonight? Mr. Burke, we have any? Okay. All right. Council, anything? Any response?
They were gonna set up, was it at the chamber of the parking lot?
At the depot, yes, sir.
At the depot, right. When would you need that money?
The
Like
money
ASAP?
would be for this upcoming season, which will run from May through November, and I should have specified on there, so that $5,000 amount is for the entire position, so that is not just to the town of Luray, but that is just that is how much we're looking for overall. For May through November.
Is there any funding being asked from Shenandoah? That managers will work down there also, right?
Yes, we did present at their meeting last month, and so they are discussing the funding at their upcoming meeting later this week, I believe. Time is there. So I think their thought is that they want to contribute 2,500, but that is not set in stone as they have not yet had their meeting.
Yes.
Prior to the last meeting, I understood that a request had been made to the county's Economic Development Department. So have you received a response back, or I was under the impression from that conversation that they were going to support this?
So hopefully they are pushing it through. I know Nina is going to present it at their next meeting, but she said that with all of the other funding requests that there have been, that she is not sure that this one will receive funding at this moment. So we're trying to keep our options quite open and just make sure that there is somebody that is able to run it so that it does not dissipate.
Anybody else? Okay, Ms. Nelson, we'll discuss it as well in the next meeting. Thank you. All right, Luray Downtown Initiative, Ms. Elliott.
Good evening, all. A couple of real quick things. As you all know, this Saturday is the Trout Derby that Parks and Recs put on so beautifully for us every year. I'm going to be helping Jennifer with registration. She is taking volunteers. Just putting that plug in for her here this evening. So we're looking forward to a good turnout. Looks like we're going to have good weather. The other thing that we're working on, so the Luray Downtown Initiative this year is going to be hosting a cruise-in for our July 4th celebration. It will go from 12 till 5. It will be on from the intersection of West Main all the way up to Hawksville Street. And we're looking for the possibility of putting in maybe somewhere between 50 to 70 muscle cars. And we want to do American-made muscle cars. That's kind of what we're looking at promoting. I'm working with Jennifer and Ryan now. We're getting our registration forms put together. We've already hired a DJ. We're going to have a DJ there doing like 50s, 60s, 70s music. I think it'll be a nice draw where PACA is going to be pre-selling their duck tickets. They're going to be doing some popcorn. The food trucks will be there on Ruffner. So I think it's going to be a good opportunity for us to get people to come early and stay late. And hopefully it'll turn into an annual thing. So we're pretty excited about that. Of course,
Can I interrupt real quick?
yes, sir.
Do you guys have any outside help with that?
We've asked the folks at Mount Carmel that do their car shows. I've been talking with them, and I've also been talking with Juanita up in Shenandoah.
Okay, 'cause
Or actually, I spoke with Laura about what they do up there.
I'll give you all some names. I know some guys that do that same thing, and they actually pull a lot of cars from outside of Page County as well, so Rockingham, Shenandoah County stuff. Then, I mean,
Yes, let me know when you have time to talk with me, Jason. I would so appreciate that information.
those guys would love to help.
Oh,
They'd
that's,
love to see it
yeah,
happen too, so.
absolutely.
Okay, I'll get you some names.
That would be much appreciated. Thank you so much. So still working on our co-work space, ran into a few snags with, so we're still looking for an actual space to put it, but we're working on that. I'm also working with Virginia Housing with some mixed-use grant availability. And Ms. Lillard, are you familiar with that? Have you seen some of these new mixed-use grants that have come out through?
Not recently.
Okay, all right. I would like to get
Is
some.
it only through the VMS program?
Yes, yes. But I would like to get with you with your thoughts on a couple of things since you kind of have worked in this arena as well. Trinity Waldron has completed her capstone project. Steve and I have received it. It is 69 pages. I have not read it yet today, but I will be working through that. We are going to be sitting in on her defense presentation for that project on April the 21st at 11 a.m. We'll be via Zoom, of course, with our VCU professors. But from what little bit I skimmed through and looked at, I think you guys are going to be impressed with that. And we are also working with Asian Station. Those ladies are coming along nicely, and we're excited about them getting open. So our board has approved a $500 sign grant for them to help them out. And we're also talking with some other folks because as we have budgeted $10,000 again this year for some facade grants. And so we've got some folks on the waiting list and are working on that. And in your package, you will also see our annual funding letter that's in there for you to consider as well. And that's it.
Any updates on the IBR?
The same update that I get every time I ask. We're working on it.
Had to ask.
I know, and it's frustrating, but And also too, I do want to add to, I'm also working through Virginia Main Street, looking at another dig grant for Luray. Steve, I went to him with a few suggestions of places that maybe we could do some improvements. So we are working on, I'm getting some answers back to see if some of the things that we would like to update are feasible through that grant program, because that worked out so nice for us for Creekside Commons. So, anything else?
Would you be able to email us copies of Trinity's capstone?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Certainly will. Yep, I can do that.
All right, any questions for Ms. Elliott? Well, thank you for what you're doing. as always.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Burke, fiscal year 2022, 2023 budget amendment.
Actually, if you would like to give the Luray Park Association their opportunity to do their presentation.
We can do that. Mr. Ball, are you ready with your presentation?
I am, sir. Thank you very much. The Luray Park Association is asking for financial assistance to reinstall this electrical service to the Luray Singing Tower. And if I may, I'll give you a little history. In 1937, when the tower was built, the meter was located on a power pole on the south side of Main Street, and the service was run underground under Main Street and thence underground to the tower. When the roundabout construction was proposed and the documentation came out, the power company advised us that that power pole would have to come down and that the meter location would have to be changed. We suggested at that time that they run the new service under the road and get the meter over on the Singing Tower property. They refused to do that because of the cost, I suppose. But they did offer to establish a new ground-mounted transformer on the south side of Main Street, which is there, and to locate our meter near that transformer. And then they wanted to charge us $2,000 to run to 25 feet from that meter location to where the pole used to be, where they established a junction box to connect back into the service under the road. Well, we objected to paying $2,000 for moving our meter when the roundabout was the cause of the problem, and we didn't have anything much to do with that. So after some discussion, they agreed to roll it into the utility cost for the roundabout construction. So everything was going very well until one night I was coming back from the western part of town, and I noticed that 3 of the floodlights on the tower were not working. So I asked Brenner Electrical Service to go out to the tower and find out what the problem was. And the answer was that we lost one of the legs on the 12240 volt service to our panel. So the next question was, which side of the meter is it on? And of course, it was on our side. So part of that discussion indicated that during the installation of the town's conduits to the street lighting system, the contractor for that and digging the trench for that had hit the underground line that they had put in from the transformers to the junction box. So we asked Brenner Electrical Service to go out there, get an excavator, dig up the line from the transformer to the junction box, and find out if there was damage caused in that section by the contractor for the streetlights. And the answer was, he did damage it, but he repaired it. So, okay, fine. So where is the damage? Under the road. So the next step is we have to install a new service from the transformer on the south side of Main Street, across Main Street, and get it over into the tower. The power company has offered to run from that transformer, from that junction box, under the road in an existing conduit that services the street light, and to put a meter on the back side of the Luray Cavern sign on the corner of Northcott and Main. We don't want to do that. That's not our sign. If the Caverns ever wants to take it down, we're going to be back in the same problem with that meter sticking up on a post on the corner of Northcott and Main. So we suggested we go back to our original suggestion, which was to put the meter on the back side of our marquee sign and then run it from there to the tower. The alternative is, if the power company runs the service to the north side of Main Street, we would have to pay for the service conduit and the conductors from the Luray Cavern sign, location, to the tower. We would like to put the meter on the backside of our marquee sign. In order to do that, we will pay for the conduit from the corner of Northcott and Main to our sign. The power company will install the conductors, and then we'll locate the meter on the backside of that sign. Then we, the Park Association, would have to pay for the conduit from the meter location on the back of the marquee sign to the tower, plus the electrical conductors from that point on. It's our opinion that the distance from the tower to the back of our sign is roughly 2/3 of the distance from the tower to the back of the cavern sign. Since we don't have to pay for 1/3 of the conductors to get the meter over on back of our sign, we think that the cost is going to be approximately the same. So that's what we would like to do. And the power company has agreed to bring the conductors from the transformer through the streetlight conduit to Northcott and through conduit provided by the Park Association to this new meter location. And then we would pay for the conduit from there back to the tower plus the conductors. Now, the cost is $10,000, and we need some help.
Council, any questions for Mr. Ball?
Evidently, you're using electricity with the floodlights and whatnot. Who pays the electricity bill now?
The Park Association.
Mr. Bone, is the old line from basically on the property of the tower, so like from the back of the marquee, and was that direct burial back in the day, or was that in conduit as well?
I suspect it's in conduit, but I couldn't guarantee
So
it.
we really don't
I don't
know.
know that they did a lot of direct burial cable in those days. I think they would have probably put it in metal conduit, really.
Okay.
And it doesn't run from our sign to the tower. It actually runs from the former meter location, diagonally under Main and directly to the tower. And the failure apparently is somewhere in the line under the road.
Okay. So I guess where my question was going to be is that if you tried to tie into the existing cable, the existing wiring from that general area to the tower, we're looking at the age of it plus whether or not it's even a conduit that if it was to have trouble, you could pull something through to replace it.
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
Not knowing the size of it or whatever. Okay. That was my question because
Right.
I see the benefits of a 3-inch conduit to it, that if 25, 50 years from now, if something went wrong, you don't have the excavation cost. You should be
You
able
just
to pull
pull a
something
new
through.
cable.
Right.
And it moves the meter onto our property where it probably should have been in the first place.
Right. Right.
Mr. Bond, what's the monthly bill on average, ballpark?
I can't tell you off the
No.
top of my head, no, sir. We have the bill basically is the floodlights, the light on the top of the tower that signals airplanes that we've got a 200-foot structure sitting out there near the airport. And then the other electrical usage is general duty outlets, and we do have a heat pump in the instrument.
Oh, you do have a heat pump, okay.
Yeah, in the instrument room.
Reason I was asking, if it's so small that, I don't know if there's anything the town has on that end that could be tied in. I don't know if we can do that, if we could sub-meter or just donate the electricity. It might be cheaper over 50 years, depending on what their bill is, you know? They might not use that much electricity in a decade, but I don't know that. I have no idea.
Well, I think with that good thought being said, I mean, I think this would bear time to consider and maybe investigate that and figure out what the monthly bill is and then settle on something.
Of course, our primary concern is we've been without lights on the tower for like 2 months now. And we're coming into the tourist season and it needs to be lit up at night to keep, we're concerned about airplanes and all kinds of stuff, and it has been out for like a couple of months. So we have to move forward with this regardless, and we're just seeking help from the town to help offset the cost.
10,000 is everything for it.
Yes, 10,000 includes the trenching, the conduit from the point that the power company will bring it to on the north side of Main, and then the conduit and the conductors from the signed location to the tower, and reconnecting everything.
Well, it sounds like you've done a lot of research on this.
Well, it's been going on now for like almost 2 months.
I would, well, Tim, say something.
I'm thinking the same thing.
But
I
would
think we should
make a motion. I would also, if it make a motion to allocate $10,000 toward this, I'd also like to also at the same time allocate $2,500 toward the farmer's market out of ARPA money. You know, we did get some savings on some of those connections that we had, so I think we got a little extra there, and I think those are two worthy calls. So I would wrap that up into one motion, $10,000 for the Luray Park Authority to move forward, and also $2,500 for the farmer's market. That's my motion.
I'm not against the farmer's market. I just, personally, I don't like us putting two different fundings together. That's just me personally. But coming back to the issue that's before us on the singing tower, let me address that one first. The safety concerns as far as with that being unilluminated, that not just the height and the beacon on top, but the just the security of it to help prevent vandalism, anything else. You know, I mean, that structure with its age and importance to the town, if something was to happen there, that's a costly repair, or sometimes something that you can't even repair to bring back to what it was. But I'm not making the motion, I'm just making a comment that I'm for funding that. Like I say, I don't know about running two together, but
I mean, it's $12,500. 10,000 go to them, $2,500 go to them. So that's, you know, if you don't want to do both of them together, you don't want to do one. If you want to do the other, that's fine. That's what I would just make a motion. If anybody wants to second that, that'd be great.
I guess I just want to understand it better. This is new news to me, so I guess I'd like to table it for at least till the next meeting to find out more information. I don't want to disregard the fact that you need it, but I'm not sure where it's needed. I mean, you explained it, but I didn't picture everything in my head like I wanted. So I'm not ready yet.
Steve or Brian, I mean, do you think we can get an idea of the feasibility of what Councilman Sauer suggested, or?
I'm not aware that the town has any electric service that we could tie into it. That there's SVEC lines that are going towards private facilities, but I'm not aware that we have anything that they could connect to on that property. I'll defer to Brian, but I didn't.
Thank you.
It is a good idea, I just don't think that there's anything that we could facilitate connecting to there.
Appreciate it.
Well, I'm gonna comment. I'm on the park board as well, being mayor, and the other problem is a cash flow problem, correct, Mr. Vaughn? We just don't have the 10,000 right now.
No, and we don't, and we're going to have to do it, and if we have to move forward, we just have to move forward and find help where we can get it. But like I say, I don't want to infer anything, but it's interesting that 30 days after the roundabout construction was completing, we lost our power. So and it has been out for a couple of months, and we really need to get it back hooked up.
Without power, we can't start the concert season, and, look at it.
Well, it affects some of the power up in the tower, and so.
And I'm not just looking at the tower, I'm also thinking about the pond and the grounds and everything there that's used, and the benefit that whole park there offers to visitors and citizens alike. But the security of the tower, I do worry about. I'd like to see us get this done. I think it's inevitable we have to do something, but.
Did you second the motion? I would second it with the amendment of honestly removing the Daughters of the Stars. I don't know enough about it yet, and I don't know enough about what funding sources they already have available. It sounds like there's a lot in limbo. If you would amend that, I'd second it.
I'll go ahead and go through and try to get the $2,400 for them too. I mean, they've been in here. I think they look like they've got a nice thing. It's a small contribution, so I think it'd be good. So if that doesn't fly, we can try something else. We can just do.
And I'm like Joey, I'd like to know a little bit more, and also see what some of the other, the county itself and the town of Shenandoah, and where others are at with that as well, so.
All right, well, then I'll amend my motion.
No, I mean, I'm just saying.
Well, actually, you don't have to, Lincoln, since we didn't get a second, that motion
okay.
dies.
Dies,
So
okay.
just, you can start all over again if you want. Whatever you, or anybody else, whatever you
Yeah,
want.
anybody else? I'll just vote.
Sorry.
Well, I'll make the motion then that, I'll make the motion that we move forward with funding the Park Association of $10,000 to use towards the repair and getting these lights up and working as they should.
I'll second that.
Council, any more discussion? Danielle?
Mr. Vickers?
Had to be first. Sure, yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Thank you
Well,
very much.
Thank you for being here tonight, and
Yes.
thank you for what you do on the park board. How long have you been chairman? 50?
Since Charlie Chapman retired. That's been a long time. Thank you all very
50-plus
much.
years? I mean, how long is,
Probably 50,
it's an amazing record.
maybe
Thank you.
close to it, yeah.
Well, thank you for what you do. We
Thank you
appreciate it.
very much.
All right, now, I think, Mr. Burke, agenda item 8A, public hearing on the fiscal year 2022-23 budget amendment.
Yes, sir. Council's requested to conduct a public hearing to receive input on a proposed budget amendment to the FY 22-23 town budget that would add up to $550,000 in capital reserve funding to the capital improvements expenditures funding to the adopted $13,816,383 town budget for expenses associated with the Memorial Drive corridor improvements project due to the accelerated completion of this project. The proposed budget amendment would also add up to $370,000 of revenue from the sewer fund facility fees and proffer fees from the Luray Landing development to capital improvement expenditures for expenses associated with the West Lou lift station project.
All right, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone here to speak on that? Steve, we have any correspondence? You know?
No, sir.
Okay, again, no one here to speak on that? Okay, if not, I will close the public hearing. Council, discussion?
We had discussed this at work session. I think everybody was okay with it.
Yeah, it all made sense, so.
I have a motion, Mayor. I move that the town council add up to $550,000 in capital reserve funding to capital improvement expenditures, funding for the Memorial Drive Corridor Improvements Project for the fiscal year 2022-2023 town budget. I further move that the town council add up to $370,000 of revenue from the sewer fund facility fees and proffer fees from the Luray Landing development to capital improvement expenditures for expenses associated with the West Lou lift station project into the FY 2022-2023 town budget.
Second that.
Council, any discussion? Danielle?
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Okay, moving on, agenda item 8B, public hearing, special use permit 22-14, 233 Mimsland Lane.
Yes, sir. Council's requested to conduct a public hearing to receive citizen input and to consider a request for a special use permit to operate a bed and breakfast home at 233 Mimsland Lane in the medium-density residential district, R2, from 124 Court Street, LLC. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing at their March 15th, 2023 meeting and unanimously recommended approval of the special use permit with the conditions noted.
All right, I'll open the public hearing on this special use permit. No one signed up to speak. Does anyone here tonight wish to speak on this special use permit? Okay, hearing nothing, I will close the public hearing. Council, any discussion?
I can share an update to council, which is that we were able to organize a meeting with Jim Sims at the Mimsland and some of the South Court neighbors who were just wanted to learn a little more about the Mimsland in the neighborhood, some of their properties, future plans. And I think people got a lot of peace of mind out of that, and it was a good, cordial meeting. So I think that helped a lot, and we got them connected for the future so that he can hopefully keep them updated as things change and there are new ideas and plans. So.
Council, anything else? Anybody else?
Just like to say that I wasn't present at the planning commission meeting, but I did watch it being streamed, and after that I'd listened to some of the concerns of residents in that neighborhood, and I too reached out, met with the individual that lives there that was one of the ones concerned that, a little further down the street. I will say, going there and looking at the site, the one thing that I see with this, whenever there's citizen concern, I do take that serious. And I know for the people living there, just as anywhere that I may live in town, I figure my voice definitely needs to be heard when it's something in my neighborhood or close to home. The unique thing that I saw about this property, and I discussed with the gentleman that I met as well, that the Mimslin already owns a piece of property that sort of surrounds it. So this property sits somewhat within the footprint of what the Mimslin has already, bordered by county property with courts, and which is sort of more the business side. As I told the gentleman I met with, if this expansion or this B&B was wanting to be done creeping further towards the neighborhood, on the other side of what they already own, encroaching more on the neighborhood, I would not be for it at all. But due to the location and being within the Mimslin's footprint already, that's where I thought, I didn't see the impact that would have on a neighborhood. And with the Mimslin's track record, I think being a good neighbor, from what I've heard, to any and all around it, both businesses and hospital alike and neighborhood, that they haven't been a bad neighbor. So just sharing some thoughts and discussions with the owners too.
All right, council, anybody else? Danielle?
Motion.
I mean, the motion first.
You probably do need a motion.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you two council following up on that and meeting with the residents and hearing their concerns. Mayor, I have a motion. I move the town council approve the special use permit to operate a bed and breakfast home at 233 Mimslin Lane, tax map number 42A10-A-108, and medium density residential at 124 South Court Street, LLC, with the conditions identified as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any more discussion, council? Now, Daniel.
All right. Mr. White?
Abstention.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Ms. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers, sorry.
Come on
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
All right. All right, special use permit 23-03, 109 High Street. Mr. Burke?
Yes, sir. Council's requested to conduct a public hearing to receive input and to consider a request for a special use permit to operate a lodging house at 109 High Street in the high-density residential R3 district from Luray VA. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing at their March 15th meeting and unanimously recommended approval of the special use permit with the conditions noted.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing on that. No one signed up to speak. Does anyone here tonight want to speak on this special use permit? Mr. Burke, we have any?
We had a call from one of the neighbors. She had concern about on-street parking. She was in the neighboring house and had experienced on-street parking in front of her house while the construction repairs were going on, and she was concerned about how it would impact her access to her property in the future. And I tried to explain that there were 3 dedicated spots for visitors on the property. But she indicated that if it was a problem, she would return to council to see if there was some other avenue to provide residential parking. I did tell her that we had moved away from that, but if it is a problem, she did indicate she would come back to it.
All right. If no one else wishes to speak, I'll close the public hearing on this special use permit. Council, any discussion? Any thoughts?
I mean, I'd make a general comment on the number of hearings and applications that we continue to see. I know we had all sort of hoped that we would just organically get a cooling off, and that may happen, but we might actually be an exception to that just because we're such a destination for this area. I can't comment on the veracity of people's concerns, but the things that I hear from people are, finding places to afford in my neighborhood, knowing who's in my neighborhood, and knowing who owns in my neighborhood, and that they're from the county. So I just hope that we can get our short-term rental ordinance that we had discussed passed, and I know that's separate from the lodging houses, and then I'm looking forward to the lodging house discussion tonight. I wanted to ask, how can we expedite the process on the short-term rental ordinance? Because I don't think it was on the Planning Commission agenda for their meeting this week, and I didn't know how, a determination is made of when to discuss that, but.
Well, the lodging house is on your agenda.
Yes.
Those regulations. The accessory dwelling unit.
Well, the ordinance discussion that we had about just short-term rentals, that we had referred that to the Planning Commission.
That is back to you tonight.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Alex. Council, anybody else?
I mean, to what you're saying, Alex, to your point, I think this house is an exception. Many of them that we see, it's a major renovation undertaken in these homes, and unfortunately, they'll sit on the market at a relatively low price, and they're not being scooped up for any other use other than something like this. So it's a tricky one, It is. Like, there's value that people are bringing to our community, but on the other hand, we don't want a situation where people are squeezed out of the market. So it's.
Steve, can you go
look
to
forward
the
to our
map?
discussion on that.
Because that one, that's a really long lot, and it looks like there's an access road for the 3 dedicated spots in the back.
Yes, sir.
So those people wouldn't even need the parking space if there is on High Street.
Potentially.
That's what I was thinking. Because there's probably only one spot right in front of the property. That'd be public parking, is that right?
Well, in front of each of those homes, you could probably squeeze 2 to 3 cars on street.
I walk by there every day. You could get 2.
You can get 2.
Easily.
And that's an alley in the back.
But the alley is where people would be using to utilize the space, I'm thinking, with that, the dedicated spots in the back.
Yes, sir.
So, what was the problem with the lady that disagreed with it?
Well, during the renovations, there had been contractor vehicles that had been parking in front
That
of
makes
her home.
sense.
Yeah, they've been taking
Okay.
up a lot of space.
Is she somewhat, she okay with it now, or is she still?
Well, again, that was her primary concern, was the impact to parking in front of her home. The main access to her home is at the front of the property,
Right.
and in order for her to go grocery shopping or just otherwise come home and go to her home, she is hoping that there won't be impacts to the on-street parking in front of her home.
Yeah, I see that.
She did voice that concern,
Different
and
shape.
did indicate that if it was a problem, she would come back to council in the future to see if there's any remedy that council could consider.
Okay, anybody else?
Got one more question. And Ligon, you had brought it up before on some of these, which I think we've been doing on these short-term rentals, that the special use permit does not transfer upon sale of the property. I don't see it in this one as far as the motion, but
Number 7.
Yeah, it does say, yeah.
is it in there?
It's in the conditions.
Unfortunately, when you
Okay,
get
there it is.
14, it gets hidden.
Okay, all right, okay, gotcha. Okay, that was a concern. Okay, very good. And something else with any special use permit that is granted, that goes through the planning commission, is passed by council, if there's issues or problems with that special use in the future, does the council have the authority to revoke that special use permit?
Yes, sir, if there are violations of any of the conditions or any other factors that weigh into it, we receive complaints and can verify those complaints, we can come back to council. The council does have the ability to rescind.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to verify that, because really, and just as Alex says, and we've been talking about it for 2 years now as far as the magnitude of this, how frequent it is, but just want to verify, and also the public to know that if there was an owner of one of these short-term rentals, or an Airbnb, or a bed and breakfast, that had repetitive problems at that residence by not being governed or ran as it should, to have respect for the neighbors around that do reside there, that permit could be revoked.
You're correct, and
Okay.
even if the council does approve a special use permit, it doesn't prevent the owner to then enter into a long-term rental agreement with anyone.
Which would be by right, I would
Yes, sir.
assume. Yes. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Anybody else? We've got a motion, haven't we? No? Okay, let's have a motion.
Mayor, I'll make the motion. I move the town council approves this special use permit to operate the lodging house at 109 High Street in the high-density residential district from Larry Weldon with the conditions identified as presented.
Second.
Any more discussion? Danielle?
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Burke, special use permit 23-04, 262 Allison Drive.
Yes, sir. Council is requested to conduct a public hearing and to consider a request for a special use permit to operate a lodging house at 262 Allison Drive in the Planned Neighborhood Development, PND zoning district from Jane Garfa. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing at their March 15th meeting and unanimously recommended approval of the special use permit with the conditions noted.
So this one's different in the sense that it looks like this is in the brand-new, back there behind Walmart, right?
It's in
And-
Luray Landing Townhomes, yes, sir.
The way I read it was that she wants to live there, but when she's not there, she wants to be able to rent it.
That's in her application, yes, sir.
Okay.
So we do not need to do a public hearing on this?
No, we do.
Yeah, we
We
do.
do?
Yeah, you didn't have, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, same.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll open the public hearing on special use permit 23-04, 262 Allison Drive. Nobody's signed up to speak. Does anyone here want to speak on this special use permit? Yes, ma'am. Would you come up to the podium, please? Thank you for coming tonight. If you could give us your name and address, please.
Hi, Council. I'm Jane Garfay, the owner, and my address is 262 Allison. Just wanted to come up here and answer any questions or concerns the public has and the council.
Okay.
Okay.
Have you moved in already? This looks like a brand-new place.
Yes, back in October.
Council, any more questions?
Parking there, that's, is it like two vehicle spaces typically per unit?
I'm not sure that they have a limit. There's a parking lot that's for guests right across the street from my unit, and there's a driveway for my unit.
Okay.
Each unit is required to provide 2.5 spaces through the garage and the driveway. There are some end units that actually have 3 spaces,
Okay,
and then in order to meet the additional half for each of the units that doesn't have the 2-car driveway, there are a number of parking facilities associated with Luray Landing for overflow parking.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
you.
Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on this special use permit? Steve, anything from anybody? Okay. All right, hearing nothing, I will close the public hearing. Council?
So when these are being advertised for sale, do I recall correctly, you said at the last meeting, they understood that some of them could be in fact used for short-term?
Councilman Pettit did bring that up, and I have seen what they advertise is that their homeowners association has signed off, and they alert all of the potential buyers that there is the potential approved by the homeowners association for short-term rental in the complex.
That's what I was told.
Yeah, I think that's important.
I don't know how much Miss Garfield lives here in Luray, but to me, this is an ideal type of a person. Someone that lives here, they're adding value to their home. You know, again, if one of us were to leave somewhere for 6-8 months and want to put our home on Airbnb and come back, I think that's a great use for it. So.
It's a revenue generator, too.
Yeah, that's right.
I would just say there, if it was a applicant that lives somewhere else in this neighborhood, but since she lives there, out of town, I think it makes more sense, but if it was like an investor, just wanted to buy a townhouse there, and I would say no. But since just her address is obviously listed in the public record as that as the address, then I think it's like you said, I think I have no issue with it. But I think if someone wanted to scoop up 2 or 3 of them and make them all short-term rentals, I just set it clear right now, because you'll probably see other ones that if you live in it and you're not there and you want to rent it out, I think that's what I'd rather see here be approved, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. I guess because they put it into their initial bylaws, and I don't know how much consideration we give to that. You know, especially if,
They seem okay with it, but I still think that, we still need places for people who live here to live. So,
Okay, anybody else?
yeah.
More discussion, council?
I have a motion.
I made a note this time.
Well, if I can bring one more thing up before she makes that, I hear exactly what Mr. Webb's saying, and I agree with that to a point, but I was also under the understanding, I don't know this to be fact, but that some of the units were not selling as fast or moving like they thought they would. And I think that may be why some of this has come to be, and if that is the case, once again, I can't say for sure that's fact, I have heard that, then I'd rather see units sold and being used as the short-term rental into units that remain sitting there vacant with no owners, or slow the process of development out there. So I don't think we're stealing from or taking away opportunity from those who are looking to buy, as far as using an actual home, as we are of keeping stuff moving out there than stuff sitting.
That's part of the long view too, right? The long view is that these homes are gonna be here for generations, right? And it's a single use. The first person that owns it can use it for this purpose. The next person has to,
Right.
either it reverts, or they come back before us again. But
Right.
for the next 100 years, or however long that home sits there, it's available for people in the town of Luray, so.
Right. So
Anybody else?
just adding that.
Yeah.
Stephanie, do you want to make the motion?
Sure. I move that the town council approve the special use permit to operate a lodging house at 262 Allison Drive, tax map number 42A 17-1-74 in the planned neighborhood development zoning district for Jan Garfay,
Oh, Garfay.
with the conditions as presented. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Danielle?
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Burke, special use permit 23-06, 23 Circle Street.
Yes, sir. The end of the special use permit consideration for this evening is a request to conduct a public hearing and receive and to consider a request for a special use permit to change the use and construct public storage units at 23 Zirkle Street in the limited industrial M1 zoning district from Scenic Serenity LLC. Staff have recommended the following conditions be considered. Off-street parking for 3 vehicles. Signage shall be considered by separate permit applications. No off-site lighting trespass, and no construction over town facilities. The last condition results from the fact that a town sanitary sewer line runs through the property. The applicant is aware of that facility and has indicated he can do his improvements without building atop the line. And the planning commission did conduct a public hearing at their March 15th meeting and unanimously recommended approval of the special use permit with the conditions noted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burke. Okay, I'll open the public hearing on the special use permit 23-06. No one signed up to speak. Does anyone here tonight want to speak on this special use permit?
We're available for questions if anybody has a question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for being here. Mr. Burke, did we have any comments?
There had been a concern by the owner of the former art warehouse building about light trespass or potential impact of the view. The proposed work is to be conducted under the existing facility, so there should be no change to the view from that facility.
Gentlemen, you all want to address that, or that's pretty much what?
Within the confines of the existing building, so.
Well, no one's in there anyway, so what's it gonna matter?
Scenic
So-
Serenity LLC, I'm expecting to see pretty things. That's,
Mural.
yeah, that's.
Well, when that started, it's kind of gotten a little sidetracked.
Okay, well, I saw that and I'm like, yes, this is gonna look great. I-
And I'm talking about the warehouse, by the way. No one's in there, so.
Gentlemen, you all have any comments before we close the public hearing?
How many units will it include?
Well, we're hoping around 50, and we're gonna start out maybe 20 and, so see how it goes.
It all makes sense to me. I mean, people have a lot of junk too, so I think you'll have business.
Oh, I'm sorry.
People have a lot of stuff that they need a place to put it, so you'll
Softened
have
it a little bit
business.
second time.
That's it, building, we can put it.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to comment on this? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Council discussion?
It'll be nice to see that cleaned up a little bit from its current state. With that, I have a motion. I move the town council approve the special use permit to change the use and construct public storage units at 23 Zirkle Street, tax map number 42A 11-A-192 in the limited industrial zoning district from Scenic Serenity LLC with conditions as presented.
Second that.
All right. Council, any more discussion? Danielle?
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Steve, don't we have one more public hearing?
Yes, sir, we
On
have one more,
8F?
but it's not a special use permit.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. All right.
Council's requested to conduct a public hearing to receive input on a code amendment to Town Code Appendix A, Article 5, Section 518, Lodging House Regulations. The code amendment would establish regulations on the use and operation of lodging houses operated in the town limits. Regulations would be established for the general operation, occupancy limitations, safety regulations, prohibited activities, and enforcement. And this is the item that council had previously referred to the planning commission.
They were so good that I didn't even realize they had done it, so.
Very quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll open the public hearing on this. All right, anybody here tonight to speak on the code amendment? No one signed up. Steve, do we have any concerns from anybody?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Hearing that, I'll close the public hearing. Council?
Steve, I was looking today, so it looks like 518 is already occupied as commercial vehicles.
I will have to. We have our book open.
Okay.
I do not have section 518 in my hard copy.
Were you on Muni
I
code
was
or where
on,
were
I was
you?
on Municode.
It's in a supplemental, right? Article 5. Find it right now.
Is it under supplemental? Excuse me, supplemental?
I mean, that's where the five start, 5.
Or, okay.
You see here, it looks like to me we have a 517.2. And then the 518 is commercial vehicles, and that's just 518, and this is,
518.
I mean, you could make it 518.1 if you wanted to.
Well, for the purposes of the motion, I just thought I would bring that up.
Yeah, just make it 518.1. Is your 518, then maybe a 5, then. Does that make sense?
Or I guess, let's see.
Is there
Would that
any
affect,
is there any other sections to
public
that?
hearing
518
notice?
one went already.
No, commercial vehicles is 518. So I think if you just made it 518.1, or if you want to, we could just make it 519. I mean, that's not a substantial change, just codifying it different, just making it 519.
Right.
But for the purposes, that wasn't, the public hearing notice that we've already, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's just a very minor, I mean, a number, just a code of, the intent of what hasn't changed really.
Right.
So I'd say 519, 519.1. And under Article 5 supplemental regulations. I've been at this thing like so many times before that I just got used to where everything was. So,
I apologize, good catch. And it's been through several months of review.
Stephanie's got it.
All right, how do we want to do it? Stephanie, you want to choose?
I would say 519.
Okay, thank you. All right. You want to just make the
Since
motion
you're
again, or
asked.
just change that part, or?
No, we can do that after we review it all in one sweep.
Okay.
One question I had, reviewing it again, what's the rationale for 519 G? Any meals provided shall be served to only overnight guests. I mean, it's a maximum of 10 people. I don't know, it just seems like kind of a nitpicky thing to have in there to me. Maybe I'm missing the
How are we gonna police that?
rationale. I know, like, we're not. I'm just like, no.
If I bring my bestie and serve a meal.
Hey, do you have 7 hot dogs? What's gonna be?
Wait a minute, what are you saying?
So,
I think it's supposed to mean so you can't serve meals to people that aren't in the house, like a restaurant, you can't say.
sure,
"Come
but
on
you
down
only
here."
have 10 people
Right.
maximum, so, I don't know.
I guess that's what that's supposed to mean.
I just don't like nitpicky laws unless there's a good reason for it.
It's probably so that you can't like make advertisements that, meal tonight and invite 50 people in that wouldn't be
I
staying.
mean, sure, I mean, you also can't
That's why it's
like,
there, I guess.
run a auto mechanic shop out of it, so it's like, it just seems kind of random and superfluous to me, but.
Like anything else we do, it's got all these details to make sure everybody understands it.
I believe the intent is that the bed and breakfast home requires the owner to be present.
Mhm.
The lodging house does not, but it doesn't preclude the owner from being present. So the issuance of the lodging house, if for one reason or another I wanted it to evolve into a bed and breakfast home, through the SUP, I could still do that. But then I think that's where the concern for the carryover.
So there is a direct,
There's the potential. It probably won't happen.
yeah. I know a lot of
But
them,
if
they'll do like, for an extra X, you can get breakfast, continental breakfast to be provided, that type of thing, so.
Yes.
That's kind of the thinking.
That's the, it probably won't happen, but it could. And that's part of the rationale for trying to include that, is that, again, the lodging house doesn't preclude homeowner to occupy when visitors are there.
I mean, it's not a big thing for me, because at the end of the day, if somebody wants to do it, they're just probably gonna just do it anyways, and, but it's there if we need it, I suppose. Otherwise, I think it's fine. I think it looks good. Good document.
Yeah, I'm glad we can get something done on it. I did want to follow up, and maybe this is just a separate conversation for another day, but did we have any interest in, prohibiting in certain residential districts? That was something that Brian and I had an email conversation way back at the beginning, and he had said maybe there were certain residential districts where we would just not want to even have the special use.
Well,
would we have any appetite for that, or?
Currently in R1,
Yeah.
both, any type of short term is prohibited. In the R2, you can only have the owner occupy the bed and breakfast home. Then the remaining R3, R4, R5 allows it as a special use permit. The exception is within the business district, it's allowed by right. So, if there is concern, I need to qualify that. It is also allowed in the planned neighborhood development, as we've just experienced. So, and that is, the town attorney has provided the opinion that it's basically an all or nothing. If council feels that the number of short-term rentals approved for any zoning district has reached a saturation point, we would then have to go and remove that as a special use, qualified use in that particular zoning district. And if council would like, we can provide an annual, number of special use permits that have been approved for any given district, so y'all have the ability to take a look and say, okay, 25, not bad, 50, okay, we probably need to look at that.
Yeah, if that's not too much of an extra thing on y'all's already kind of high
Well,
plates.
I think what we can do is work with the planning commission when they do their annual report to y'all. We can then include, because they have a concern, like council, about the number of short-term rentals that the town has been considering and or approving in the various districts. So we can make that part of the annual report to y'all.
All right, thank you.
One question I've got, back to the meals question. with this on the lodging house. If we look at the bed and breakfast, is there wording in the code with bed and breakfast as far as the obtaining or meeting any health department regulations?
If,
I believe there's something in the,
I believe
in the
there
bed and breakfast, and I know of many bed and breakfasts that do have a regular health inspector visit from time to time to, because I believe if receiving compensation for the meals, that's gonna fall under, I don't want us to put something in our town code that makes someone feel that, hey, I can be cooking meals and serving these and, you know, putting a price on them and avoiding health department regulations. That's the one thing that jumps out at me here, and I believe there's some reference to health department or permit with the bed and breakfast because of the meal. See if that's correct.
Yes, sir, I'm looking at the regulations that are in section 402.2 for bed and breakfast homes, sub number 7, all applicable provisions of uniform statewide building code, the Commonwealth Board of Health, and all applicable laws, regulations, and inspections and licenses shall be met. So that was the standard provision in the town's, with respect to the town's regulations on bed and breakfast homes.
Okay. Which is not the same wording in this, correct? As far as Department of Health.
No, and how would that work though? I'm trying to think this through now, Jason, you got me thinking. Because if it's an existing property, right, so if I purchase the property, use it as a B&B, it's in the town, and I come to you for a for my permit, that is not sent to the building official, right? Do they have to sign off on that?
Well, with the consideration, with the ordinance that you are considering tonight, they would have to, under safety regulations, they would,
I know for the
they have to get an updated certificate of occupancy, from the building official, so they would have to go back and the building official would be aware of the use, and so that, we included that so that if for any reason there's any need for anything in the home code related, that the building official would have that opportunity to evaluate it.
And I know, thinking about just my days working up there, I mean, they would look at the number of people the house could accommodate for sleepers and to make sure that well and septic, right, was sufficient or adequate for the number of bodies that would be staying. And they'll look at like the fire, whatever, all that stuff. But I don't know for B&B, for the kitchen, I don't know what would trigger. I guess I'm having a hard time now.
Well, I'm looking at this saying that we're saying that they must collect meals tax and submit meals tax. So you're selling a meal, and I know our restaurants in town, unless it's something that's prepackaged, if you're preparing it, then that's a prepared item that under the tax laws means that that's what you have to charge meals tax for. If you give someone a can of soda that's unopened, you don't charge meals tax on that, or you give them a store-bought food product that's wrapped, okay, that's not meals tax. But the moment you pour it in a glass, or the moment you open a package or present it as served, it's then the meals tax, and that's what we're looking at with a restaurant. So I'm just wondering how this could, they're collecting meals tax, how is there no inspection of the
Councilman Pettit,
facilities or whatever
you're
to
making me
prepare
think
food?
like you always do. So how often do restaurants get a health inspector come through?
At least once a year, many times 2 to 3.
Because I'm not in the fairgrounds, every vendor gets inspected at least once during Fair Week.
Yeah, but those, right, because those things.
So
right.
I see the value of that.
Right.
What I'm wondering is, if it's, in this case, a lodging house, that may, once in a great while, they serve a meal. How often would you expect the health inspector to check it out? The same once a year type thing, or?
of some operating bed and breakfasts that I'm aware of that have been in the business for years, yes, they get routine visit, which is often once, twice a year.
Right,
But-
so if the bed and breakfast gets inspections, then you're saying maybe lodging houses should get it also?
Well, I'm just,
What you're
right,
asking,
I'm looking here that we're giving them, by our town code, we're giving them the authority to prepare and serve a food product and collect a meals tax. Where's the safety element? We're not even mentioning that here.
I understand what you're saying.
Which I don't think any of this trumps state code. I believe if they're preparing and serving food, the state code's gonna say you're gonna have to have an inspected kitchen.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the license, the lodging application, and yes, this is sent, right, Steve, it shows here that the, building official does have to sign off on it. So they would pick up on that, because there is a place that they have to check, Jason, that says, if you will be serving prepared meals to your guests, complete the registration for food and beverage tax form. So all the language is in there. But I see what you're saying, that your question, should it be listed in the supplementary?
Right, either, right, since we're mentioning the meals tax and the meal, something in there about must have the licensing, we're talking about the building inspector and all of that, and also, the local health department, as far as having an inspected kitchen. I mean, we don't know if someone looks at this, and we're not going out and inspecting the home that someone's turning into a lodging house. So who knows what the conditions and the safety is of that kitchen as far as food safety, as far as surfaces, bacteria, all the stuff that has to be thought about when you're preparing food, and especially when you're selling food. Someone's paying for a product, they're
Jason, do health inspectors schedule visits, or they just make
no
surprise visits?
random. They're surprised. Yep.
So it would be the same thing, the lodging house, I would think.
Yep. Your initial inspection scheduled
Right.
to come in to approve it.
That way you can
But then-
upgrade whatever you don't
But then
have.
inspections after that are just random, they just show up. So, yeah, you don't know they're
So
coming.
if somebody gets real sloppy in it and people start getting sick, they pay the price. 'Cause that should be in there, I think.
I don't mean to make this too complicated, folks. I didn't catch this looking at this earlier, the meals part with the lodging house thrown in there. And I don't know if we've thought that all the way through. If it didn't say anything about meals in this, I'm fine with the whole ordinance if the meals tax and the meals was removed, to where the lodging house says, hey, that's your place to stay, but you're on your own for food, wherever you go to get it. But the fact they're gonna prepare and serve, I think we need some language in there that says they,
Maybe just a line that says that reminds them that they must be in compliant with all relevant state code.
yeah.
Want to add that to the motion?
Yeah, we can add
Yes.
that, and I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no more discussion, but.
Well, we can always discuss it after the motion. Go ahead if you want to, Alex.
All right. I move that town council approve and adopt the code amendment to Town Code Appendix A, Article 5, Section 519, Lodging House Regulations, as presented to take effect upon adoption, including an amendment referencing relevant state code on health in regards to meals.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? Okay, Danielle?
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
All right, moving on. Proclamation for Grace Nowak. If you don't know Grace, she served on the Planning Commission since 2013. I had the pleasure of serving with her for 2 years. She's a very dedicated member. She has resigned because of health reasons, and we have a proclamation thanking her for her service. Whereas Grace Novak was appointed to the Luray Planning Commission by Councilman John Meany on February 11th, 2013, and whereas Ms. Novak began her service on the Planning Commission at the February 13th, 2013 meeting, and whereas Ms. Novak was integral in all the Commission's actions during her tenure, and whereas Ms. Nowak would visit each site being considered by the Commission to ensure that she had a full understanding of the requests and its potential impact on the community, and whereas Ms. Nowak provided guidance and input on two updates to the town comprehensive plan during her service, and whereas Ms. Nowak served as the Commission's Vice Chairman since January 2018, and whereas Ms. Nowak has always gone above and beyond to ensure her vote on actions by the Commission were consistent with the town code and comprehensive plan, and whereas Ms. Nowak has announced her retirement from the Planning Commission effective March 1st, 2023. Now therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and members of town council of the town of Luray hereby express our sincere appreciation and gratitude for Ms. Nowak's dedication and commitment to citizens of the town of Luray, congratulate her on the occasion of her retirement from the Planning Commission, and wish her the best and continued success in her future endeavors. Council?
I have a motion.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I move that the town council approve the proclamation of recognition for Grace Nowak as presented. Extend our thanks for her continued commitment to the citizens of the town of Luray.
Second that.
Discussion, council. Danielle?
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Before I vote, I would say she came in the office when I was working here and made the mistake of telling me she was on the plan commission, where she used to live at. So I asked her, oh, we need someone. So she happily agreed and has served very well for almost 10 years. I don't know if she's really missed many meetings. So appreciate Grace and thank you, and I hope that she is feeling better and doing well. So, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
I would say she's the only one that ever actually visited every site. I know when I was on the
Yep, that she did.
planning commission, I didn't do that, but I
Yep.
think she made a point of going to, I'll admit to it, but she did. And sometimes she would talk to the people if they were there, and all, and she was very dedicated. Okay.
Great.
Our next two involve the Luray Police Department. Chief Cook, do you have any officers coming by for this? Okay, did you want to stand up and receive this proclamation for your department? Can you come forward?
Is this a photo op?
Oh, we've got Jennifer here for the.
Jensen, I get in there too.
You have to give both of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, get them up there.
All of you get in there.
So who gets the proclamation then?
Okay.
Second copy of it now. Well, I've got you never.
Chief, you gotta turn around so you can be in the picture. Just get
Stand back beside Jen.
beside Jen. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Whereas an individual performed several acts of vandalism along the Hawksbill Greenway overnight on March 28, 2023, and whereas this vandalism was extensive and created a blight seen by residents and visitors to Luray, and whereas the Luray Police Department began an extensive investigation into the incident and was able to identify and arrest an individual by the end of March 28th, and whereas the Parks and Recreation Department began immediate cleanup of several locations to remove the blight from the most prominent locations along the Greenway, and whereas Officer Dustin Painter, Officer Jay Roy, Detective Sergeant Alan Smoot, Sergeant Nathan Doffmeyer, and Lieutenant Lonnie Foster tracked down several leads to identify the suspect, and whereas Logan Atkins worked extensively to remove the graffiti from several sites, and Ryan Covich coordinated with several artists to schedule repairs of the affected murals, and whereas the town of Luray is grateful for the dedication of the town staff who provided the response to this incident to minimize its impact on the community and to prevent its recurrence. Now therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and members of town council of the town of Luray hereby express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to the town staff involved in the apprehension of the suspect and the repairs to town infrastructure resulting from the terrible vandalism incident on March 28th, 2023. Thank you all very much. I don't recall an incident that caused so much outrage in the town as the damage to the Greenway, but thank you all very much. Ron?
Jerry, you want to give him a high five, or is that? I got
you think is appropriate.
This is good, I got it. I got 5, 6.
Pure. No, since that was what they put on there, pure.
Pure.
You know what they put on there?
Stay up here.
I was trying to figure. I thought it was a W.
You're actually
Pure.
smiling on this one.
Just let me approve it.
Yes, I have a motion. Is that what you want? Okay. I move that the town council approve the proclamation of appreciation for staff from the police department, parks and rec department, and their timely response to the recent vandalism that took place along the Hawksbill Greenway.
I second that.
Council, any discussion?
Yeah.
On the fly here, Danny,
Thank you all for your work on that. Frustrating and sad that that's how people want to spend their time and energy, but we appreciate the work you
quick
guys
work.
did.
It was
Yeah.
good.
No, they got recognition for it, huh? They got recognition for it, I guess.
Yes, it is.
anybody else?
Thank you all. Yeah.
Mr. White?
Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
All right. Whereas on Saturday, April 1st, 2023, Luray police officers responded to a 7:38 p.m. call for service regarding a 21-year-old male with special needs who was entrapped in the mud of a pond on Cave Hill Road. And whereas officers Brandon Henson and Brianna Good and Sergeant Nathan Doffenmeyer responded and arrived on scene within 2 minutes. And whereas officers Henson and Good and Sergeant Doffenmeyer assessed the situation and provided life-saving actions to extricate the individual from the mud. And whereas the individual was assessed at the scene by medical professionals and returned home safely. And whereas the town of Luray is grateful for the life-saving actions taken by these Luray police officers. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and members of town council of the town of Luray hereby express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to the town staff involved in the incident that saved the life of a town resident. Congratulations. Do I have a motion?
I move that the town council approve the proclamation of appreciation for the staff from the police department for their life-saving actions on April the 1st.
Second it.
Discussion?
You guys.
Daniel?
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Well, thank you. You want to have more film or you're out of it?
Oh, I got
Out
more
of
to do.
film.
I think he's waiting for a high five.
Gotta wind it up.
I've done like a dozen. How many do you want?
Well, this is a different thing.
Got it. Yeah. I don't, how many pictures do they want?
You were like, thank you.
You're a critic, you know that? You're just a critic.
I didn't see your camera.
You want to check them out?
No, thank you.
All right.
Trust.
You can start taking them yourself.
Okay. All right. Luray Landing open space, Mr. Burke?
Yes, your council is requested to consider the preliminary and final plat applications received from Baker Development Partnership LLC for the subdivision of several parcels into 11 open space lots, 1 well lot, right-of-way, and easements for the Luray Landing Planned Neighborhood Subdivision. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of these preliminary and final plats at their March 15th meeting.
Council?
Does the word final mean final? That's what I'm wondering. Seems like this keeps coming back.
Well, it's the final for these lots.
Okay.
There are still potential lots that could be
That's what I was
subdivided,
thinking.
but what this will allow, it will allow,
Them to go
Baker
forward.
And D.R. Horton to start improvements of some of the amenities for
Right.
the Luray Landing.
I got it.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion.
Okay.
I move the town council approve the preliminary and final plat application received from Baker Development Partnership LLC for the subdivision of parcels 42A8-A-1, 42A8-A-3, 42A8-A-1D, 42A8-A-1E, 42A28-A-2, 42A17-1-121, and 42A17-1-150 into 11 open space lots, 1 well lot, right-of-way, and easements for the Luray Landing Planned Neighborhood Subdivision as presented. I should have let Stephanie read that
Yeah,
one.
that's a good, good job, Joey. Right?
Thank you,
That's
Joey.
a lot of numbers on there. All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Daniel?
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Burke, Dean Park concession agreement extension.
Yes, sir. Council's requested to consider approval of the third and final renewal of the Dean Park concession agreement with the Luray Little League to operate the concession facilities for the 2023 season. Staff will develop a request for proposal for the 2024 season to include 3 extensions.
Right, council, any questions? We have Jen here if we, Jen and Rob, Ryan? Anything y'all want to add to that? Or?
Well, they did a good job first 2 seasons, so we're good to go, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I need to hear.
Get the motion.
I move that, you ready for a motion?
You are.
Move the town council approve the third and final renewal of the Dean Park concession agreement with the Luray Little League to operate the concession facilities for the 2023 season as presented.
Second.
Council discussion. Danielle?
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Burke, LPD credit cards. Oh, excuse me, no.
Accessory dwelling units.
All right, code amendment, referral, section 516, accessory dwelling units.
Yes, sir. Council's requested to consider referral of the draft code amendment to section 516, accessory dwelling units, developed by Councilman Webb to the Planning Commission for review.
All right, council?
We got to talk about it at the work session. A lot of good work went into it. I'm excited to get it done. I think that's another option that makes sense in terms of more housing for people that can integrate into what now exists. I'd make a motion. I move that town council refer consideration of the code amendment to Town Code Appendix A, Article 5, Section 516, accessory dwelling units to the Planning Commission as presented.
Second that.
In discussion.
Thank you for the work on that, Legan. Good job.
A lot of
Good work.
Thank you.
It took a couple hours. It took a couple hours. That was
Hey,
it.
well, you've done it a few times. Still, thank you for it.
Thank you.
Good work.
If there are no more attaboys for Ligon, we'll go ahead.
One more time, please.
It was impressive work.
Danielle?
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
All right, now, Mr. Burke, LPD credit cards.
Yes, sir. Council's requested to consider approval of a request from the Chief of Police to authorize issuance of town credit cards to the department captain, lieutenant, and patrol sergeants. Due to the extent of required training for officers and other shift expenses, the additional credit cards would allow better coverage for training events and should an emergency expense occur during a regular shift.
All right, council? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm ready to make a motion now. I'm curious, so does this always have to come before us due to our accounting code or what?
We're not sure. We do it so infrequently, it
Okay.
just seemed reasonable to present it.
That's fine. No, it's fine. It just seems kind of like a random thing coming to us, but I'm totally fine to.
In the past, Jody, all requests for additional credit cards have come before council.
Okay.
It's just been a very long time since we've
Yeah.
done that.
All right, I move the town council approve the issuance of town credit cards to the police department captain, lieutenant, and patrol sergeants as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Danielle?
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
All right, fiscal year 2023, 24, budget ad, Mr. Burke?
Yes, sir. Council's requested to review and consider the draft public hearing advertisement for the recommended FY 23-24 budget for the town of Luray. As part of this advertisement, council is requested to set the date for the public hearing for the budget. Staff would recommend consideration of May 8th, your next meeting for the public hearing.
All right, any thoughts on that?
Need a
May
motion.
8th?
I move that the town council approve that advertisement for the FY 23-24 budget public hearing and set the date as May 8th, 2023.
Second.
Discussion? Danielle, we're having a career night here, aren't we?
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Item 9.1, ARPA Dean Park Field Repairs. We discussed this last week, at the work session. Steve?
Yes, sir. Council's requested to consider appropriation of $22,500 of ARPA funds for the placement of infield mix to fields 1, 2, and 3 at Ralph Dean Recreation Park, and to replace the Field 4 scoreboard controller. Parks and Recs will incorporate future field fill into their future budgeted activities.
Council?
That was well explained to me last meeting, so I'd like to make the motion.
Leroy.
I move the town council approves the appropriation authorized use of $22,500 of ARPA funds to fund the placement of infield mix and replace the scoreboard controller at Dean Park as presented.
Discussion?
Just one thought on this. This is a good example of why I think it's wise for us to hold on to some of the ARPA funds, because we have these things come out of left field. I know I voted earlier for the electrical work, but I have a sneaking suspicion that Mr. Bond's sneaking suspicion is correct, that the work we did out there had something to do with it. So, but generally speaking, I think it's wise for us to hold some in reserve so we can cover some of these things.
All right, anybody else?
I like that out of left field bit.
You're welcome.
Infield, it was infield.
Okay, Danielle.
Did we get a
Good
second?
catch here.
We had a second on
Good
that,
catch.
didn't we?
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Burke, ARPA Watch and Warrant Sewer Lateral.
Yes, sir. Council's requested to consider appropriation of $29,425 of ARPA funds for the lining of a sewer lateral from the Watch and Warrant Restaurant at 2 East Main Street. Public Works staff have been working with the property owner to alleviate sewer backups at the property. The town has installed a short span of new lateral cleanout and a cleanout structure at the lateral's connection to the building. The lateral from the building appears to have a few slight rises at joint connections that is collecting grease and other materials discharged from the property. The town has worked with several consultants to determine that the lining of the lateral should remove these issues. The town has received a proposal to clean the line at $4,250 and line approximately 150 linear feet for $22,500 from Nova Lining Company LLC in Springfield, Virginia.
Council?
Is this something that was just cause the age of the pipes down there that needs to be done? Or did something happen during construction or whatever?
We haven't seen any true settlement of the sewer lateral. It just appears that there's slight, when they put the pipes together, there's just a lip, if you will. And it's that lip, now that there's increased use with the restaurant, that appears to be catching material.
They're having trouble.
And, yes, sir. So, I don't believe we've had any trouble since they put in some of the improvements, but talking with other folks about it, the lining that is proposed by Nova Lining is an extra slick material that should allow for grease and everything else to transfer down the lateral without any impedance.
It's another one of those things we didn't see coming.
Yes, sir.
But I mean, ideally, they try to keep as much grease out as possible.
We've
I mean,
expressed that to them, yes, sir.
Is that what's ultimately causing it? They have a grease trap, right?
They do. They have a sink with a grease trap.
So,
Well, I know
Go
what
ahead,
you're saying
Jason.
there too. The other question too, the 150 feet, is this going down Broad Street towards Delaware North?
Yes, sir.
So sort of the northbound lane of Broad?
What we've identified is because the kitchen was installed with the artisan's facility in the basement, they have their own separate lateral from the building all the way down to the main on Broad Street near the alley.
Yes.
And that was installed to provide them fall from the outlet of the basement. So they're the only facility that is contributing to the lateral, and so that's where we're trying to work with them to improve their operations, but we're also taking the initiative to make improvements to the lateral so that everything that we can do to correct the situation has been done.
Is this a PVC lateral? Or is it
No,
older?
it's, is it?
Ductile iron?
I can't recall the material of it, but the lining will effectively make it the equivalent of a very slick PVC.
Okay, but it is an older lateral
It
that
is
was.
an older lateral. It's been in at least 20 to 30 years, but it is in good shape. That's the odd thing, is that it's in relatively good shape, again, except for the lips at the joints of each of the.
What was the problem, Brian, that we had across the street one time? I mean, we had a major issue there. Was that kind of similar for Uncle Buck's many years ago? I mean,
That was just grease.
I had
A lot.
a lot. And they were just pouring, I mean, it was just going in right
They
there.
really, yeah.
Okay. This is not that bad.
Yeah, and that was not that issue was not a pipe issue. That was a user issue.
So you see this as a town issue? This is our baby, we need to fix it.
Mr. Matthews has consulted with the Virginia Rural Water, as well as a couple of other consultants, and while the lifts don't appear to be a significant contributor to the problem of the backups, they can cause problems. And so by lining the lateral, we remove any issue that the town would have with regard to discharge from the facility.
But they haven't had any major backups lately. I mean, has it been going?
Well, they haven't, but our crews have been going out weekly to flush the line just to make sure that there isn't anything in the lateral.
Looked all right?
Has there been anything in the lines?
Unfortunately, I can't speak to
Yeah.
that.
But we'd be looking at a street cut versus the lining. If the lining wasn't done, we're looking at cutting the roadway, or is this under sidewalk or roadway?
This is under roadway, and it's 10 to
It's
15
deep.
feet below the roadway, so it would, unfortunately.
Excavation costs far exceed the lining costs.
Yes, sir.
Right, so.
And the disruption to traffic and the disruption to the restaurant for the time that we would be.
And what other utilities you may encounter
Yes, sir.
in the process.
This is probably the best solution to minimize any issues with that lateral.
Yeah, that's where I was going. It said, yeah, it's.
So is this a precaution or a remedy, is what I guess is really comes down to for me?
It's a remedy. Again, the.
So it is a known issue, it's actually an active issue, or has it been addressed with the work that they did
The video
previously?
inspections we have seen, there have been some balls of grease that are sitting in the lateral.
Even currently?
Even currently,
Okay.
at these lips.
Okay.
And so to remove any impedance in the lateral, staff does recommend proceeding with the lining.
So this is an issue that would just be well beyond resolution from just being really, really careful with the grease, is what you're
Yes,
saying?
sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah, there you go, Alex, well said.
And again.
It's a lot of money.
They are there, and unfortunately, as long as they are there, Washington Warren does have the ability to say, how do you know it's not you, how do you know it's not us? And what we're trying to do is to work with the restaurant and make sure that it isn't us. We want to do as much as we can to remove any town issue so that they can continue to operate and succeed.
Well, that's the policy you always have, I think, is keep the town without blemish. I agree with that.
How did the artisans function? Because, I mean, they had a lot of oily stuff. How did they? Greasy foods? Yeah, what's the difference? Is what I'm trying to understand. I'm not opposed if it's on us and it's our issue that we remedy it, and I certainly don't want it to compromise their business. I'm glad they're here, but $30,000 to a single business is a lot of money. I just want to make sure.
Is this
I understand.
Is this a standing grease trap at a wash sink?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that grease trap is just serving that 3-compartment sink, let's say, or is there a master grease trap that all sinks within the structure are going through a grease trap before they go out to the main?
It's my understanding that it is a installation that only serves the one sink.
See, there's the.
There you go.
I meant to follow up and ask that question, so if we have more sinks, I mean, it's.
But again, unfortunately, we don't, the building official is the review entity within the building.
Well, and the health department is with that too, because your capacity, your grease trap is in relation to the capacity of the sink.
Yes, sir.
As far as sizing of it and.
In a perfect world, we could require a grease trap at the lateral connection.
Right.
But that doesn't.
Well, and there's my question, if we were to go forward with this and there continues to be problems, it sounds like that would be the only remedy at that point, is that there would have to be a grease trap that collects, that everything runs through. And you're saying they're the only user on that lateral?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I mean, if we do this, the town's done all it can do. If there continues to be a problem, something needs to be changed on the owner's side.
Yes, sir.
I honestly can't see it. I mean, I understand and I feel for them that this is an issue, but we had Artisan's Grill was there for a lot of years, and they served French fries and hamburgers and the whole bit, all the good greasy stuff. And I don't recall this being this level of an issue. I can't see doing this for one business when, again, it does sound somewhat precautionary because we don't know that they're doing all that they can do to prevent it from happening. I'm certainly not accusing because I just don't know.
And that's the problem, is that again, by doing this, it removes the town from the discussion, and hopefully.
I'm willing to have discussions for $30,000 though, is the thing, and I think.
Has there been any other,
it's,
has there been any other materials or anything else that's caused the clogging and the backup, or just the grease that we've been able to identify?
Unfortunately, by the time that the town has been involved, the owner has already had his plumber come in and flush the line. So we've not been able to visually inspect when there's a complete backup.
But you have a clean out in it now, right?
We
Is
have
that-
a clean out
okay.
in it, and
So-
we have videoed it, and we have seen where the lifts have caught
Right.
different material.
But if it does get clogged up with the clean out, that makes it a lot easier, right? To
Oh, but in order to prevent backups and disruption of the business.
Right.
Again,
I
that's
know.
been the main issue, is that when the
About running hot water
backup
for
occurs,
5
the
minutes,
business
we-
is affected. And yes, it is through the installation of the clean out, it's a very quick response. But it's the impact to the business before
Well,
that
you know,
occurs.
that building sat vacant for 10 years. We're now getting mills taxes. It's probably will pay that much in mill taxes in a year. I think maybe we should monitor it for a few more weeks and maybe get a direct report from Lenny to say what it's looking like. Just sort of, and maybe hold this for just a few more weeks.
I mean, I think they've made such an investment, and I think all of us are happy they're here.
Oh, absolutely.
And appreciate that
Absolutely.
investment. And I think it's important that we are leaning in and doing our due diligence and all the things. But to Joey's point, $30,000 is, I mean, we have to also make sure we're asking all the
Exhausted
hard
every
questions and
possibility.
That's it,
Right.
that's it.
And not opposed to it by any means,
Yeah.
right? It's not that
Yeah.
if it's ours.
Just want to make
it's
sure that
ours.
that the cause is not something else.
Yeah, what if we do this and then they
And
still have
it's
to pay to
still-
get their thing done? It's like-
Right, it's a lot of unknown
It's a
right there,
single-use
but it's,
line.
Yeah, it's not saying no. It's just, I think the most prudent thing is to have them do, the most aggressive protocol they can do with being careful with that grease, and then seeing where things stand in a month, 2 months, whatever.
Well, Lynn does recommend this solution, and we do have video of material that has caught on the individual lifts, so.
Is that material consistent with material you see throughout the town in other lines? Let me ask it that way.
Well, that's a good question.
Or is this material that you normally don't encounter when you have line issues?
Steve, I want to add, I hate to micromanage the department head. He seems to know what's going on. I'll go with what he says.
Well, regardless of the origination of the material, we are getting material material that gets caught on the lip.
Okay.
And because of that, there is a shared responsibility. If we do the lining, there's nothing that will impede most anything that's coming out of the restaurant in the lateral that the town is
Okay.
responsible for.
Okay.
And I
That
appreciate-
helps. So paper, other debris is catching potentially. We're not just looking at grease being the problem with the
But
lip.
it's the
accumulation of
balls
all of it.
grease that stop, and then they start to build up.
Build up over time,
It's
and it makes
the
it
problem
smaller
of.
and harder to flush,
That's
yes.
it, yeah. Paper and other things aren't a problem. It's when something that's, and again, these balls of grease, you know, they're not huge, but, you know, smaller than fist size, but you get one that catches, and then another one that would come down, and then a third one, and then it will block the line. So,
How big is that line again?
There's a good question. Is it a 4-inch line?
6-inch, yeah.
Pretty big line.
6-inch.
Yeah.
It's a big line.
I agree, it is an awful lot for 150 feet and for one business. But unfortunately,
Brian, you got anything to chime in? What do you think? I mean, what would be you've done this a little while.
Well, I mean, we're gonna be, like Steve said, we're gonna be responsible. If the blockage occurs in the street on our side of the clean out, we're gonna be responsible. If it causes a backup in the basement of the restaurant and they're closed for a month while they're cleaning and doing whatever, they have an ability to come back to the town and say, that blockage in your line caused my problem. So then our insurance agent gets involved. So we have the ability, just like in any home, to have to be responsible for that. So this would be solving an existing issue, like Steve's saying, and potentially foregoing future problems that we may see down the road, because here's the deal. Now that we know the blockages can occur and the lips can stop material, if we don't do something about it, we knew about it and didn't act. So we're kind of at a point now where we almost, and that's where Lynn's coming from. Now that we know that there's a potential issue there, if we don't take care of that potential issue, it does increase our liability. So it's a
All right.
6-inch line.
Well, I'll make a motion. No. Yeah, it sounds like it needs to probably just go ahead and fix it. And we feel comfortable with these folks as being.
they're actually out of Winchester. The office we're dealing with is actually out of Winchester.
Yeah, we use them in Pleasance out of Maryland. Both of those are companies we use.
I mean, glad they're here. A huge asset to the town, and I've been there. The food was amazing, and but it's it's a lot of money for just one point. But this also sends a message too when we're looking at our old downtown, and the big talk for years has been getting businesses to come into these vacant buildings and operate and stuff. If we don't do our share, what message are we sending to those that are about to drop $500,000, $2 million, whatever it might be, into the renovation of one of our old downtown buildings if we're not going to step up either? So I think that once this is done, if there's other issues with this line, the remedies need to be on the user side at some point. I don't know, and I don't know what you're saying, Joey. It's we hadn't had these issues for years, but I also don't know what's maybe changed in that line. As deep as it is, I wouldn't think anything would move in that time, but who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to vote no for it still. It's fine if you all pass it through, just because I can't wrap my head around what's changed from artisans. What's the difference? Why were they able to do this and it not be a constant backup? And these folks are experiencing it. If it's us and it does prove to be true that we need it, totally on board. But I need to understand that. So I'd be happy to, even if we, our next meeting, I'd happily vote yes if I came back and there was good rationale for it. But in the meantime, yes, we need to support all of our businesses, but we don't have 30,000 to support every one of our businesses either. So we multiply that out, and we're in a pickle pretty quickly. So that's where I'm coming from. But whatever.
So Joey, in the
whatever
interim,
council
do you plan on following up with Mr. Matthews or anyone on your own to kind of
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up with
What that
town
might look
staff
like.
and see what is actually happening, you know? What's the difference, if there is one? If he says, yeah, well, that pipe after 20 years, I don't know, it's more friction in the pipe or something or another. It might be a very simple explanation of why it's happening now and wasn't then, but, I mean, it is $30,000.
Yeah, no, I only ask because.
I'm looking at our budget and we got a lot of
Lenny
increases on
recommended,
there
yeah.
and, I don't know.
So to
That's
move
my
this-
2 cents.
To
Yeah.
move this
Yeah.
along, I
One
think y'all
voice.
mentioned you're cleaning out every week, is that right? Town staff is, to kind of as a precaution? Is
As a
that the-
precaution, but once this is done, we would not have to do that. So it does remove a couple hours of work from Lynn's crew.
Can we do it for another month, clean it out once a week, and while the council studies it?
I
Thanks,
think
man.
all we're doing is kicking the can, to be honest with you.
Well, and that's why I inquired. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I think I'm just trying to figure out who can we talk to further that we've not already spoken to. If the director of the department is making this recommendation, then like what other conversations could have been had or might we have that's going to give us better clarity to make this decision in 30 days is what I'm asking.
I guess
I'm
it
unsure that-
would have been great just to be able to say, hey, Lynn, what's different now versus what's historically been there, you know?
right, right.
And then that's really, if we got them on the cell phone right now, I could probably get my answer in 2
It might be
minutes.
just a volume of usage.
And it
Or,
might
yeah,
be that,
I mean,
that's fine.
I don't think.
Yeah, it's totally fine, but again, it's also, you know, government, we like to do the safe things, of course, which that's good, but it also can be expensive and be inefficient sometimes too. And
All right, we need to do something.
That's one voice, so that's,
Thank you, Julie. All right, anybody?
Have we had a motion yet?
No.
I'd like to make one. I move the town council approves the appropriation and authorize the use of $29,425 of ARPA funds for the lining of the sewer lateral from the Watch and War Restaurant at 2 East Main Street. I further move the town council award the contract to clean and line the lateral to Nova Lining Company LLC for an amount not to exceed $29,425.
I'll second that.
All right, council, any more discussion?
Before we take a vote, I'm gonna say what changed my, Brian's comments, as well as what they're relaying from Lenny. And I trust with the amount of time they've been there for weeks and have tried different avenues, I don't think Lenny nor Brian's gonna tell me anything different than what I know now. And it's tough, I know, but anyway, I just wanted to say that, so.
I mean, and I'll just say that in the interim, I think the last time that was closed down, Steve and myself, we spent 25 minutes probably on the phone discussing it. I talked to some of the business, folks there that have interest in it, and the same. I mean, hearing from both of them, and you sharing with us, Steve, that this is Lenny's recommendation. If he was here tonight, that he would support this. Again, it's not my position to be the subject matter expert.
I'm not
talking-
either, that's for sure.
Yeah, and our staff for that, so.
Okay, any more discussion?
Well, I don't know if this will help or not. I'm trying to pull up the video that Lynn received. And if I can find the obstruction, I'll put it up on the screen. And please recognize that it is a grease ball. It doesn't look like a grease ball. There's other things that it could be. But it is a grease ball.
Oh, no grease balls.
We met a few of them.
Yeah.
I mean, the smoking gun, yeah.
That's the ball of grease that got caught on a lip. And because of that, it catches up behind everything.
Is that our new equipment? That camera, is that?
I think that we actually hired this company, didn't we? The folks from Winchester, I thought Lynn had done that because.
We used our camera the second time on
Yeah,
the video.
I don't
First,
know if
this video I think came from
Because of they were actually diagnosing or what?
Yeah, and then we had rural water come back and we ran ours in again, just to double check, because we came up from the bottom, ours has a 300-foot capacity, so we came up from Broad Street.
A lot of standing water.
I can see the grease.
Well, if I could find there is a 5-second portion of the video where we can actually, you can see the little lip and, you know, I don't know if you could see that, but.
Well. And that's okay. I don't know if that's gonna sway anyone one way or the other, so.
And
But
again,
I would
it's
believe-
this type
yeah.
of lip. It's
Mhm.
not large, but it's just enough that anything that is somewhat substantial will get caught on. And that's what we're having to dealing with, and that's what the lining will remove from the lateral.
Is it plastic pipe? What is it?
No,
Or the old, what do they call that stuff?
I apologize, I don't recall whether it's, it's not.
Those old clay things where they push together, what was that called?
I don't know if it's that Orangeburg and different
Yeah,
stuff
no,
back in
it's
those
not
days.
terracotta, that kind of stuff.
Orangeburg would have fallen apart.
Yeah, it would have been collapsed long before now, probably, but might be cast.
Yeah, I apologize, I just don't know off the top of my head. I know that Lynn has told me in one ear, out the other.
It's vitreous clay,
Is it clay?
the old vitreous clay,
Oh,
not Orangeburg.
oh,
So
okay.
it's been there a while,
Yeah.
but it's in fairly good shape. For a line that old, that deep in the ground.
Well, knowing that it's clay, that's probably more than any 25 years old.
That's where the lips come from, you know, they put them together in short
Right,
sections. So
right.
the little lip and the ring, but it's in great shape for as old as it is, but the lips do catch stuff. And, I don't know why it's different. Lenny doesn't know either. It's just, you know, the restaurant's that empty. A lot of times grease will accumulate on the line, and then when the restaurant opens back up, there's an immediate problem. We didn't see that in this one. It's,
Didn't.
I feel better that we're sealing a clay line, which, in my limited knowledge, tells me it's pretty old.
50 plus.
Yeah, 50 plus, yeah, sounds more like it, than possibly lining a PVC line. So,
Yeah.
yes, okay, that makes more sense.
All right, any more
All right.
discussion? All right, Danielle?
Okay. Mr. Sowers?
No.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Hope it solves the problem, though. I will say that. I wish them the best. I hope it done.
So if the farmer's market finds a pipe with a lip, we got you.
All right, Mr. Burke,
Hopefully the farmer's market doesn't generate grease.
It's true.
All right, that was long, okay. All right, Mr. Burke, Planning Commission appointment.
Yes, sir. Council's requested to consider approval of the appointment of Barbie Stambach to the Planning Commission to fill the unexpired term for Grace Noack, which expires December 31st, 2024, as recommended by Councilman Pettit.
All right. Any discussion on this?
It's a good recommendation, Jason.
Well, I'd just like to say with her, she had sent her short bio in. I'm assuming everybody here on council received, and like I say, been very active in the community for many years, and small business owner, and retired from our school systems, and I just think she'd be a good fit. Just glad to have her be willing to step up if we so choose.
Need a motion?
With that, I'll make the motion. I move that town council approve the appointment of Barbie Stambach to the planning commission with a term to expire on December 31st, 2024 as presented.
Second that.
Discussion? Danielle?
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Burke, budget review?
Yes, sir. Council's requested to ask any questions or offer any suggestions that they might have regarding the general fund portion of the FY 23-24 budget. We've got representatives from some of the departments that are associated with the general fund here to address any concerns that might have.
Council, any thoughts?
Steve, I got no clue why the expenditures of the mayor and council went up 22% when all the other employees are 2% COLA.
If you look in the expenditures, council had approved some code to deal with derelict buildings, and we had to, in order to allow the town to proceed with those repairs, we incorporated, I believe it was $40,000.
Now, what I'm asking is, I thought it was salaries, is what I'm.
No, it's total
Okay.
overall.
Yes, sir, it's accounting for that, the funding for potential derelict building intersection.
That answers that question. Thank you.
Don't expect a bigger paycheck.
I was asking,
Not
what's,
salaries.
22% increase.
it looked too good to me.
All right, anybody else? Any other questions?
I just want to comment that, everybody put skin in the game. Nobody got exactly everything they wanted, but you're able to put together something that doesn't raise any of the tax rates, which I think is to be commended. I know Parks and Rec could use plenty more, but thank y'all for miraculously making do.
Anybody else?
I just look at this budget and think 3 years from now, we need to be, not that we need to implement austerity measures or anything like that, but we need to tighten our belts. I think it's getting it's getting pretty fat. I know a lot of expenses went up. When you get money like ARPA, it's real easy for that to hide the issue of your spending, and it's easy to overspend when you get something like that, and it's very easy to implement things that are ongoing costs after the money dries up. So we just need to be very cautious with that moving forward.
I agree. If you look at this budget, just here, it's, what we've looked at before, it's, and each department is doing an outstanding job. I realize it, but it comes back with what you're saying too, Joey. I think we really need to, if we stay on the trend, if you look at our budgets over the last 10 years, all departments, I don't know how the town can continue to do on the trend that it's going with the growth of each of these departments and our spending as a town, that we're gonna have to find some ways to make it work. And I think you're right, Joey. There's lots of good things that we've done that we like as a town, and citizens may like as residents here, or tourists may like, but sometimes that snowballs, and the ongoing cost to maintain those tangible items or services or whatever it might be becomes complicated, and it is that rise that we're seeing across the board. And it's not that any one department's doing anything wrong, and I realize prices have gone up and everything else, but we're gonna have to some point look at, hey, how are we gonna be able to trim? How are we gonna be able to save, or at least even level? Last 5 years, we haven't really leveled out. We're climbing, and we just can't keep that trend. And our residents here in the town, I don't think their salaries are, their family incomes are keeping up with the trend either. So, anyway.
And we think of not only our real estate taxes, but think of my kids' real estate taxes, right? I mean, that's what we should be considering. What is the quality of life? What is their
who's going to be living here in 20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but
not all doom and gloom. I don't mean it that way at all.
And thanks to every every department for working on this and crunching. And I know everybody, if I was the head of any one of the departments that we're looking at here, I'd be trying and fighting for what I could get to, and need more to do what I feel I need to do. But it's going to be hard to continue if we don't find some ways to start reeling some stuff in. Yeah. And I think it's long-term commitments that's really getting us, is the ongoing, those things that have recurring costs.
Anybody else? This is, again, just a review tonight. Ask questions. I can take any action. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Staff have anything they'd like to share?
If you have questions, we're here. We brought our budget proposal that we had submitted to Steve with the explanation for each line item and justification for those. And like we talked about earlier, we are looking for additional ways to kind of create some additional revenue, revenue recovery through band sponsorships, a small admission fee to Sunflower Festival. There've been even some additional new things that have come up since we submitted the budget, option-wise with the lake and potential kayak rentals in the future that could produce revenue year-round instead of just the several months that we have open there. We completely understand that. I don't think our Parks and Rec department of 2023 is what it was 10 or 15 years ago. Our events have really taken off the past couple of years, and maybe that's thanks to COVID, or just we're just a great place to visit and to live, and we do realize that, and we're here and committed to doing our part creatively to continue our events and our programs and our facilities, and also look into ways that would be feasible and economical to recover some of those costs.
Well, you guys and your team work great. I mean, I see it, and public sees it too, and it's 24/7. And the chief here tonight, same thing. I mean, as we see more people, and I know personally, it used to just be the weekends, but you can ride through town now on a Wednesday night, and the street's full, and 7 out of 10 cars are out-of-state tags, and that's more use of parks and stuff for you. It's more calls for service, for our police department. It's more toilets being flushed and everything else. So it's all what comes down. It's just it's growing pains, I guess. But it seems like our spending to keep up with that is somewhat outpacing our revenues from that. And I don't know the answer to that or how we get that straight, but that's what we've got to be seriously looking at, is making sure that as the demand is higher on you as a department and us as a town, that the revenues can keep up with that.
Exactly. I think something that maybe it doesn't make our department unique. I guess I always look at it from my perspective. I always look at the hangout with Joey and Lynn and Todd or the chief, but we have an aging infrastructure. Like Arrowhead is old, was never ADA compliant. We've made great strides up there. We've replaced all the park signage, put in wheel stops, refreshed the gravel to the point of which we could afford this year. Obviously, that's something that should be ongoing at least every year, every other year. The same thing with the rec park facilities. And I think, Ron, you mentioned it the other day, is we have aging concessions, are the facilities there, how much longer before we start to see significant replacement and repair costs?
Appliances and things.
Right, and so it's the simple things. It's the paint, it's the repainting the picnic tables, it's the HVAC system that goes, it's the toilet that's 20 years old that you have to replace, the hand dryers and the sinks, and just getting caught up. Most of our facilities and infrastructure are made out of wood. They've just reached the end of their useful lifespan, and I think, we've just not kept up with replacement, and it's hitting us all at once. So, we have a plan, we have an annual plan, we have a projects plan, we meet with our staff constantly. I remind them that if you're in the field, you have equipment that's breaking, or you see something that needs to go on this plan, we put it on the plan so that when it comes time to do budget, we pull that up by line item, and then we try to prioritize, basically on safety and userability. And then when we can get the nice things and actually upgrade some of our facilities to long-term materials, that's our goal. We've worked really hard the past 3 years to develop that. Everything from the bottom up, inventory, tracking our spending, tracking everything that has a small engine is tracked. The repairs are tracked, so that if we have a blower that we've replaced a part on 3 times, it doesn't make sense to continue to spend $300 on repairs annually when we just need to buy a new component. And so it's taken a long time for us to get our feet under us. I really greatly appreciate council and administration's support, particularly with the ARPA funding. We've come a long way in 2 years, and I think, you know, we've got a good ways to go, but we're really have a good momentum in the department with the staff and them understanding the goals and being responsible with their spending and their requests as well. So.
Council, anybody else?
I mean, it's tough because it's all in balance. I mean, the things that you all do and the other department heads do, those are the things that keep us a place people want to come live, spend money, frequent our businesses. You know, there's revenue generation there, so it's all just in balance what quality of life versus cost of life means.
Bless you. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Getting late, Mayor. I don't think we have much left in this.
Oh, it's only 9. All right. Mr. Bodkins, you have anything for us?
I don't have anything, Mayor, thank you.
All right, any council comments?
Thank you for those that are still in the audience. That's pretty impressive.
And those at home, ships at sea, all that, those that are still listening to us, I'm sure.
Sure we've lost most of them.
Yeah, they're dead. Mayor's comments. I think we don't have any, of course, we have the Youth Trout Derby Saturday. That's always a neat thing. I always like to go by and watch that, and it's always a good job by the Parks and Rec Department. And you're still looking for volunteers?
Yeah, yes, anyone like to volunteer, actually, come by, it's easy registration, we always love handing the goodie bags out to the kids. We have lunch sponsored, this is a huge community event. We recover almost all of the costs from this event through our community donations. The kids have a great time, staff has a great time, so just come by.
Got a couple letter polls too.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no.
That's right.
All right, Steve, don't we have a ribbon cutting at Daisy's next week? What is that date? Is that the only one next week?
It is,
18th, 19th, what was it?
It is the 19th.
10 o'clock?
19th at 10 o'clock.
Any more that week?
that's it.
See, Walmart's having, I guess they haven't, they're not including us, or
We've not
had
received
not been
any.
contacted, okay. All right, anybody else have anything? Danielle, thank you for your service this evening. It's
You're
been
welcome.
quite a load for you.
Busy, huh?
We're adjourned.